good now? Okay. All right, welcome everybody to the December meeting, the last one of the year of the Philipstown Conservation Board. We're going to skip the minutes tonight because I guess some people were not used to getting them electronically, so we'll worry about that next month. In terms of correspondence of note, I had sent out some different memos that we had put together vis-a-vis Automar, for instance, which I believe there will be a site visit at some point when we can probably do it with the planning board if the developer decides to go forward. I think part of the hiccup right now is that the Zoning Board of Appeals is not allowing a drive-through. So that's put a crimp on their plans. Vasta, which is on Cliffside Court that we had looked at in July, Max and I had a long conversation with the town engineer, Ron Gaynor, and we're going to revise a memo on that one because it's more complicated than what we even thought. And then lastly, what we were told by the project engineer was not jurisdictional to us it's the old Garrison garage. It has even though it's on Route 9, it has an address that's on Old West Point Road West. When I sent the memo out to Neil Zuckerman, the planning board chair, he had said, I do think that is jurisdictional, and I ran over and took a look at it and then was on the phone with Ron Gaynor. And their access that they want to build is definitely through steep slopes. Can I say, were they native steep slopes or were they made that way from other work? I can't, but either way, it is going to be jurisdictional for us, and I think we're going to have to take a look at it and then guide the planning board on that. With that said, let us move to, it's old business, but it's not really, Timber Ridge, Indian Brook Road. And most of us were on a site visit there this weekend.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Based upon the inspection that was made over the weekend with the board, we've prepared a revised plan for the board to review. We took the comments of the Conservation Board and we made some environmental changes that we felt would ensure the preservation of the wetlands on the property and help to preserve the character of the drainage channel. So some of the changes that have been made based upon the input of the board, we replaced a culvert pipe with a bottomless culvert, okay? So that we're leaving the drainage channel intact and we're simply spanning over. It's similar to like a bridge that, or an arc culvert without a bottom. In addition to that, we've incorporated stormwater management along the driveway. The intent of that is to intercept any runoff from the driveway prior to it flowing into the wetland and allowing it to filtrate into the ground. It should be noted that the proposed driveway will be a pervious gravel driveway, which will allow the stormwater to filtrate into the ground as opposed to shed off the site. And we believe that those were the major concerns of the board based upon our inspection.
So what you're using for drainage is basically a trench, a swale.
We consider it an infiltration trench, and it allows the stormwater runoff to filtrate into the trench as opposed to flow over land.
Right. So my only comment on that, I'm not against it. I've tried the same thing on my driveway, which is a half mile long, more for drainage purposes. The homeowners are going to realize the maintenance can be significant because when you're plowing a dirt road, where's some of the material going, where the trench was. I mean, I'm not against it. It's certainly, I mean, I wish we had it on many of our unpaved roads in the town. You know, if there's the wherewithal to take care of it, it definitely works. have questions, comments on this?
How did you establish the width of the crossing? Just,
The span,
yeah,
based upon the visual observation of the drainage channel, it appeared to be somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 feet at that point. And so we increased it to 10 feet in order to allow there to be no impact in the water path.
I mean, I would probably like to see that a little bit wider, and to provide more of a gap, in that area, if it's feasible with a steel span, a steel beam. I don't know what the limits are for a width of a bridge like that.
So it's actually a reinforced concrete structure. So it's not a conventional bridge crossing, it's more or less a culvert pipe that doesn't have a bottom. I know that when I was reviewing the manuals, they refer to as wide as 10 foot 4 inches. There may be other manufacturers that can produce a wider span. It should be noted that the crossing at that point was maybe where the water would actually flow based upon a visual observation of the wear. It might have only been 4 or 5 feet. But that's why I felt that 10 foot would be more than enough. If you note that point where we're crossing is the narrowest part of the wetland. Basically tapers down to that one little area based
guess
upon
my-
the delineation that was made. But I could look and see if there's a possibility of increasing it any further.
Yeah, my only concern would be when you're digging the footings out, you're coming in, further in, into that channel, into the intermittent stream water course. If you could keep it wider, where almost you'd still have some of the upland stream bank preserved,
Understood.
and then keep the stream bed itself intact as well, and you're kind of working outside of the bounds of the bed and the banks of the stream completely. I think that would lend itself to a better design for that site. And maybe it's not concrete, maybe it ends up being steel and something on top of that. From an engineering standpoint, that can get you a wider span and not break the bank, in terms of
We could
cost.
look into that, sir.
And I think that makes sense. I mean, one of the questions that I know I brought up in the field, and I think perhaps Tony did too, is, I mean, this road is, I would say, a significant undertaking. So we had asked the question of, there is an existing path or travelway, though the first probably 70 feet of it is quite steep, and it would require a variance from the zoning board of appeals. But at the same time, I'm gathering two of the issues that the homeowners are having is their existing access right now is, we'll call it, not necessarily a legal one, because they're traveling through a neighbor's property that they do not have an easement upon. And the other would be to reestablish a bridge over Indian Brook that washed out many years ago. So I just want to bring this up, so that everybody's aware of it. I don't know what's the lesser evil of it all. Because this driveway that they're building, while there's very little elevation basically going in and out, there will be substantial amount of cut and fill to keep the road basically level side to side.
If I may say, it gets wet down below there. I mean, it would be origin transverse at front part of the property. It's been so dry lately, but because Indian Brook is there.
I mean, I personally, I'm not against it. I'm just, basically, I think, everybody needs to be aware of it, particularly who was not at the site visit. The road on paper looks, other than the intermittent stream crossing, does not look like significant engineering, but it is some decent amount
So
of work that
we have provided the board with a driveway profile. And if you take a look at the profile, you'll see that we're basically traversing a 1% grade to a point beyond the culvert crossing. If we were coming in from the Pine Ridge. Beyond the drainage channel crossing, the grade increases to a 6% grade, which is relative, and then it drops back down to an 8% grade as it crosses the stone wall and makes that turn. The entirety of the driveway, aside from where it makes that turn and it starts to climb up to the barn, is basically at grade. So when you come off of Pine Ridge, there's a few feet of drop that would be graded to the level of the existing road. It comes back down to grade, and we're following the natural grade for the most of the path.
I totally understand that. Where there's going to be some cut and fill is not in the to and fro, it's the side to side. Because you are on a, while albeit a gentle slope, the slope in spots is probably exceeding 5%, which just needs to be built up. So it's
Yeah, there may be
work.
some minor grading, but from my observation, we are able to create the proposed driveway with minimum disturbance to the existing trees, minimum disturbance to the existing grade, and it appears to be an ideal location for a driveway, but I do appreciate the input regarding the consideration of the drive.
We have other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have one. I was not able to make the site visit, and I was just wondering if anyone would care to comment on this, the wetland area, the water body, and its health and,
I think at best it's an intermittent water course.
okay.
Yeah.
It was dry.
Yeah.
Well, everything's dry right now.
I don't think,
Yeah.
it'd be hard to even classify what type of wetland it is, just based on the characteristics of the site right now. So probably when it's really wet out and there's a heavy rain, you're gonna have water flowing through there, and the soil is probably pretty hydric, so it might pool in areas. But it's not, a swamp or anything by any means in terms of like a red maple swamp forest or,
Well, the blue area looks confusing because it looks like a lake.
yeah, that's actually on a hill, a slope.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not
And
a
I do
lake.
think using,
Floodplain.
yeah, and I do think using a wide span, as wide as possible, is a very good measure.
We'll look into that.
Yeah, I mean, again, protecting the bed and banks of the stream would be essential there, and kind of working outside of that.
I
You know,
understand.
yeah.
I guess the way I was looking at it from my multiple inspections, there's really not much of a defined channel. Although there is, but it's not as if you're coming across the stream where you would jump over. We just strolled right through without even noticing you're in it. So it's more or less based upon the surrounding grade. It allows water at times for, during the rainfall, water would sheet flow through that area, so it's almost been created, but it's minimal in terms of a visual observation of the channel.
But you can surmise like where that sheet flow is happening, and then working
Yes,
outside of that.
that's correct. And we'll look into seeing about increasing it so that even the footings would be shifted a little bit further away. Okay.
And when ideally would, if we grant a permit, would you like to do the work?
I think the work would take place during the summer of '25. Yes.
So the reason I ask that, then there's not a rush to issue a conditional permit, I think, though we could. The question is, what's missing on this plan that should be there? And then the board can decide if we're comfortable with this. We can either wait to get that plan back, or we could, make stipulations what needs to be put on the plan for a conditional permit.
I got a question. What are the two permits? You here for two permits or just one?
It's one property that we've separated the two applications to keep the accessory building independent from the primary building. That allows the owners to complete a phase of the project without being tied to the other one. So
We're
it's,
here for the upper section.
no, we're here,
Well,
well,
we're
for
actually
both.
talking about both. So basically,
We're taking
you
one.
You're gonna surmise better than I. Basically, the wetland permit that's being looked for on the lower part of the property is, the building itself is within the wetland buffer.
Correct.
And you're extending the footprint ever so slightly.
Correct.
As well as, I'm not sure a permit is necessary, you're abandoning the existing septic that exists.
That sits within the
Over here.
buffer and
Yeah.
possibly within the wetland proper. And we're relocating it outside of any environmental
Right.
area.
And I'm imagining the main part of abandoning is just filling the existing tank itself, that the leaching field is probably not gonna be touched unless it's collapsing.
It's not required to disturb the
Right.
absorption area.
Right.
But the tank would need to be processed.
Well, I think further detail on the span area and then erosion control being put in place during construction of that span feature. You know, obviously, again, just to protect any possible runoff into that area, when there's exposed soil would be necessary.
Also, we're gonna have a trench going from here to here for the septic, so that's gonna
Yep.
have to.
That
be
has
all-
to be on the plan, very good, Tony.
Yeah.
Yep.
So any detail, any, again, erosion control that you're gonna be putting in place for the septic that will be pumped uphill as well? That septic line?
Yeah.
I think that's what Tony was
Yep.
referring to.
Yeah,
That would be helpful. And I don't know if we were talking about any sort of mitigation plantings, or if that, if the board felt that was necessary. I don't know if that, you know, if you were gonna weigh out a conditional permit now, if there would be any sort of native plantings you'd like to offset the development with, potentially? Or any other design changes that you'd think would potentially benefit the site?
Yeah, I mean, up here myself, I'm not sure what would survive easily as mitigation. And down below, the area is, you know, is disturbed and has been disturbed for probably a century. I'm not sure, I'm always for mitigation, but I'm not sure it's best served here, to be honest.
That was my opinion.
You know, I'd be more inclined to go for as wide a span as we can
Yeah.
over that depression that is, it's almost a sheet flow more than just an intermittent stream. That to me would be ample mitigation.
Where's the exact parameters of the existing septic right now?
that's down,
Where's,
that's down below next to the house.
we know that, but where's the, is there a,
To the right, on the plan to the right.
To the east of it, I'm not sure.
It's not on the map.
Probably doesn't exist on a map to begin with.
But in that,
Not in any detail, but
Yeah.
it was projected out the side beyond the tank, and it appeared to be running, you know, following the contours, so. Right, that's being abandoned, correct.
is it near the well?
that's where the leach field is?
No, the leach field's getting abandoned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this
Because
is,
it's like this, right? Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
number one,
This is the new one.
yeah,
Which was
I don't know if
the-
the contours are completely accurate here, because my memory is it's flatter than it appears.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say that it's, what's the term, a substandard, it's an older leaching field.
Okay.
So as far as we know, it could be one or two lines of tile, clay pipe, and nothing more. You know, and that's why my inclination is probably less disturbance is better to it.
They're gonna leave the tank in and fill it with sand, too.
Yeah, yeah,
And they're moving it up here.
yes,
There's no pipe on the map, right?
there needs to be. Yeah,
There's no pipe on the map.
yeah, we just mentioned that the,
Yeah.
where the trench for the piping is going.
Okay,
Needs.
so the,
I don't see a tank either.
there's an alternate, there's two plans here now. We have the accessory building plan, and then we have the main house plan. And let me check this. Okay, so unfortunately, the plan that shows that is the septic plan that was approved by the house plan. For the purposes So for the purpose of the wetlands application, that information was not reflected on this plan, but it could be added on for the purposes of continuity of the whole plan. We could include it in this site plan.
I think that'd be good, so that way you can incorporate that into the overall changes for the sediment and erosion control plan.
Yeah, I think it's, even though it's 2 permits, I think a single plan
Yeah.
would make sense. Any more comments, suggestions?
The septic from the upper structure is gonna be retained up on the hill?
Yes.
So they're
Both of them
pumping
are gonna
all the
be,
way up.
Both gonna be up
it's gonna
there
be
side to
sort of
side.
side by side, and then going further west would be the expansion area.
Or
for
back
both
towards that
fields.
dip?
Yeah.
But the area,
Pretty rocky up there.
the area that's shown on the plan represents all of the primary and expansion for both the accessory and the existing building.
One well, the one well, 2 wells going in up on the hill?
Each,
One down
One
below,
down,
one
one
up
up.
top.
One up near where? Where's the one up on the hill go?
so,
Just go south of
so the intent of the applicant
Down in
is
here?
is to create each of the 2 houses independent of each other. So they all have their own utilities that are independent, et cetera. And along that line was the driveway issue.
So when you say utilities, so other than septic and water,
Septic
you're
and water.
gonna be bringing in power for the upper building?
Right, electric.
Power and theoretically broadband. Is that going underground, or is that poles, or nobody's thought about it?
That would be underground.
Okay. So I assume that's gonna go along the driveway or under the driveway?
That would follow the driveway.
Okay.
The new driveway.
Correct.
Right.
Which means then, for the crossing, I think we'd probably prefer that it goes into a conduit rather than going under. Right?
From the house, is that what you talked to the electrician
I think it's gonna come from the house, not a separate.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it wouldn't
That's
come-
fine.
It wouldn't come off Pine Ridge Road.
Yeah, so that should be marked on your plans too.
My consultation with the electrician, we talked about coming from the house,
Yeah, okay.
so we don't
Okay.
disturb that.
Yeah, I mean, that probably makes sense, because you're already making a trench for the septic line that's going up.
Correct.
All right.
So you're actually gonna use Barbie's land to come in on? Is that, you're gonna get an easement there?
No, all of the activities are taking place on the owner's property. When you say Barbie's land, Barbara, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
the crossing, no, it doesn't come that route, right?
No, at the moment, we have 2 options. One,
No, the electric though, it doesn't
oh,
come.
no, he's talking about the entry, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
okay,
talking
excuse
about
me.
access. Yeah, currently we're using, Barbara I have a written agreement from her at the moment. It's not an easement, it's just a written agreement, and she may give me an easement. Plan B would be the existing bridge that was there for, I
Way
don't know
up
how many
here,
years,
this
80
one.
years.
Yeah.
That may have to be rebuilt if Barbara decides to sell her house or, go a different route. But I talked to Greg in town about the bridge, and he doesn't have any problem with rebuilding, as long as it's built to spec.
Right.
Minor specs, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be in front of us again for that, but that's okay. So I think the best course of action is to just update the plans, because you're not planning to do work until, I'm gonna guess,
I'd like to commence work as soon as possible, but, yeah.
okay.
Yes, and that's why we separated the two.
Then I think, what are we missing? Let's break this up into 2. So for the upper section, my feeling is, I don't think we should have a conditional permit yet. Right, it's definitely, I think, we're all agreeing that this is permittable, and you won't have a problem with it, but we want some details. So right now, the main reason that you're in front of us for the lower section, and this is my fault not focusing on it enough, is really the slight expansion of the house, which I'd like you to point out, because some people were not there, and also the abandonment of the existing septic
The,
and the trench line. That becomes an interesting one, because they sort of overlap. The trench line, you're not gonna dig the trench, I'm assuming,
Right, we
until you
don't-
do the upper. So I think that the trench line, even though it's feeding the lower house, and we'll call it permit A, I think we're gonna probably have to permit that with permit B, if you will. Right.
we would need to be able to include the sanitary system for the existing house and allow that construction to take place if we were going to get a permit for the existing house. As far as the accessory, that could be, everything regarding the accessory could be left under that permit. So the existing house is reflected on the plan, it's shaded, and then there's a proposed addition that will sit right in front of the house, which is previously like a stone and patio area. That will be replaced by an addition that comes out towards the driveway, and it extends to the right side of the house, basically below where the existing patio was located. And so the entirety of the expansion of the house in terms of the footprint is situate in the front and a bit to the right. The other action would be the elimination of a septic tank, which sits just beyond the patio, and the abandonment of the existing septic. And then there is some accessory improvements, like I believe they're redoing the patio on this side of the house, but primarily it is a addition towards the front of the house and then an expansion upwards. And that's reflected on the plan here. The stormwater management is located in the front. We're providing subsurface discharge for the roof drains. And we are proposing the new well to be located just above the house and to the left, approximately 40 feet off the house. And that, for the most part, that's the extent of activities. The area that is within the wetland buffer would be a portion of the addition and the work to abandon the tank.
Also, the project, although there's 2 permits we're applying for, the trench, we're not gonna dig it up a second time. I mean, the job is gonna be done once, opened up, mechanicals put in, and try to do them at the same time. So we don't wanna separate it so much other than just the permitting factor.
Right. So I think what makes the most sense is to have a consolidated plan. Come in next month with a consolidated plan. We've told you what's missing, what we want to see. And then within that plan, just, I don't know how you want to mark it. It could be a big box that just shows, we'll call it Permit A or Project A, Project B. Because the one overlap is the trench and sort of it's basically the trench, because the septic is outside of the wetland buffer.
You're referring to the trench, are you referring to the force main, which is running from below to the top?
Yep.
So that trench is solely for the use of the main house. It's completely independent. So the accessory building does not have any activity disturbances.
Right.
And so there really isn't any connection between the two. In other words,
Electric gonna go up that way through the same trench?
the electric for, well.
Electric and the
from-
effluent pipe?
From what he's suggesting, that they may run the electric up the hill.
I think there's some, I'm not sure what the separation is between, the effluent and the electric. So that would determine how big that trench is gonna be.
Well, they would likely be, if it was to come from the main house, it would likely be an independent trench from the force main, the sanitary line, and it would be separated by 3 to 5 feet.
Right.
So what we'll do is we will determine the exact route for the electric, and we'll reflect that on the plan.
So include silt fence in with that too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or whatever, core logs or whatever.
And, the plans are really already created as one. So we will just provide one plan reflecting both the proposed site plan for existing house and accessory building. And we'll demarc each phase, shall we?
Any other questions or comments? So we'll see you back in January,
Very good.
and I think we should be able to just permit this. Yeah.
And one
Yeah.
other question, Max. Would you think it may be necessary for you to take another look at that to determine the span that you're looking for? Because it may change the design requirements. And so I'd rather err on the side of caution and get your input rather than making a judgment that may not. Because I kind of thought that I had it, but your point is taken.
Well, it does narrow in that one spot.
That's what I was looking at. So maybe when Max goes out there, you'll come to a conclusion that we can use.
Put, I don't know, pin flags or something in the ground. And
Or even if you, because it's already been flagged, so we do have it's demarked, but even if you just suggest, 10 feet's enough, or you think it might need more than that way, I can use that as a guide.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
I'll coordinate that with you guys, and we can just bring a tape measure up there and figure it out. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we appreciate your time. Everyone have a good holiday.
Yes,
And we'll
thank
see you next year.
Thank you. Makes too much noise there.
We're gonna look at, we're gonna go there again?
I don't think we need to. If you want to.
What's over charge property?
Well, they either have to get any, full property, to the property, or they have to rebuild. It's one more.
Take it easy.
Okay, I don't believe we have any new business. So, are there any other discussions?
No, we're moving on potentially. I got quotes for the Esri ArcMap software. Cheryl had brought up that was mentioned at a town board meeting, so we just received the quotes today. So it's probably going to be around $1,500 annually.
That's not bad.
And that'll allow us to develop maps, put them forward facing for the public to view off our website, and then also allow someone like myself or an employee at the highway department to collect data on one of their field maps programs, so we can collect like stormwater metrics and things like that, so.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yep, so, and all of our old account information is still stored but not active, so that mapping, the natural resource mapper tool that we were developing, should still be housed there, and that could be put up soon, hopefully, so.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
a great help.
So, probably by the new year, we'll have something, or before that, to give to Susan to move with a purchase, so, okay.
Anything under stormwater, anything else?
That was the major thing. We have to do a 6-month update to the stormwater management program plan at the end of the month. I think last meeting, I mentioned we didn't receive any public comment on the one that we developed. There was a MS4 operator forum that was like a 3.5 hour long webinar that the DEC put on last week. And that was really informative and, a little eye-opening on what we're going to be needing to prepare for the future. So I can circulate that link potentially, and if anyone's interested, especially that stormwater group,
I'm curious to see that.
if you have the time to skim through it, it's pretty informative on what the requirements are moving forward. But yeah, that's the major updates.
And I think on behalf of the town, we're all very appreciative for all the effort you've put into this.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep.
It's been a lot. Anybody have anything else?
Are you gonna talk about the other place or no? No point unless they're here.
The bridge?
Yeah, unless they're
No,
here.
they're coming back in he wasn't gonna be ready. He let us know. They're coming back in January.
All right.
So, with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.